everybody, it's Jennifer from the Muskingum County Library System here. Today we are making fry bread. This is a traditional Native American recipe. November is Native American Heritage Month, and we are making this recipe based on the book called Fry Bread, written by Kevin Noble Maillard. And these are the ingredients that we'll be using today. You need, according to this recipe, 3.5 cups of white flour, 1 cup of cornmeal. I've got 1 pint of water boiling on the stove right now. You also need a cup of sugar. The author recommended raw sugar, but I just have regular white refined sugar here. A teaspoon, of sea salt. I have pink Himalayan salt. And about a ½ ounce or 2 packages, or just about 2 packages of dry active yeast or instant yeast. And also 1.5 cups of cold water. So we brought a pint of water to a boil on the stove here, and we will be moving over to the stove in just a second. Fry Bread, a Native American family story, written by Kevin Noble Maillard, illustrated by Juana Martinez-Neal, and published by Roaring Brook Press. Fry bread is food. Flour, salt, water, cornmeal, baking powder, perhaps milk, maybe sugar, all mixed together in a big bowl. All right, so we have our pint of water boiling here on the stove, and we are going to be mixing in the cornmeal. So pour it in very slowly and whisk it in there. And keep stirring. We're going to take the heat down to medium. It'll actually end up looking a little bit like mashed potatoes. You can also use a potato masher for this. This particular pot I have gets very hot very quickly. And keep whipping it until it's smooth. And then we are going to add in the cold water. So really right now it looks like very thick mashed potatoes. Keep adding it. So this recipe is actually from the Navajo tribe. They started making this probably about 150 years ago. Sometimes you will hear fry bread also called Navajo sopapillas or tortillas or Navajo tacos. They can make with the different fillings in them. But it is actually... Fry bread is history. The long walk, the stolen land, strangers in our own world. With unknown food, we made new recipes from what we had. Fry bread is nation. Abenaki, Apache, Arapaho, Ojibwe, Onondaga, Oglala Sioux, Narragansett, Navajo, Nipmuc, Seminole, Shoshone, Sac, and Fox. Hundreds and hundreds of tribes. All right, so after we got all the lumps out, we removed our cornmeal mixture and water mixture from the stove, from the heat, and we allowed it to cool down. How long you allow it to cool down just depends on what kind of pot you used. I happen to be using a cast iron Dutch oven, so it took a little while. And now we're going to add all of our dry ingredients in, and we have a big bowl here. I actually have this bowl. This is kind of neat because in the book the author talks a lot about family traditions, and I have a bread bowl that's actually been used by my family for about 5 generations. We're not going to be using this today because it's very old and a little bit fragile. We're just going to use a big plastic bowl and mix in our dry ingredients. First we mix all those together. So again, we had 3.5 cups of flour. Put that in there. the cup of sugar, the teaspoon of salt, and the 1/2 ounce or about 2 packets of yeast. And then we add in our cornmeal mixture. And as you can see, it came out a little bit like mashed potatoes. And we may have to add a little bit of water to moisten it as well. And just like any recipe that's made by a certain family or certain culture, there are as many different ways to make this as there are makers. Today, as of the time the book was published, there are 573 federally recognized Native American tribes. That's quite a few. And 67 state recognized tribes, and more than 600 in Canada. So Native Americans are very much a part of our everyday American life here. And bread is something that every culture has in common, because there are as many different kinds of breads as there are different people living in different places around the world. And you can make this bread a flat bread, more similar to something like naan, made in South Asia, or like pita bread, which is made by people who live along the Mediterranean. But we're going to make it a little bit more like a donut or an elephant ear. So it'll be a little bit more puffy. All right, we've got all of our ingredients there together, and we're going to mix them up and make our dough here.
Fry bread is shape. Hands mold the dough, flat like a pancake, round like a ball, or puffy like Nana's softest pillow.
All right, so we have a damp cloth, and we are just going to let this sit for about 3 hours to let the yeast rise, let the dough rise. And once you've done that, if you like, you can use a rolling pin, or you can just make balls of dough. And we'll let that rise. And while we're doing that, we're going to share the book, Fry Bread.
Fry bread is time. On weekends and holidays, supper or dinner, powwows and festivals, moments together with family and friends.
Okay, so our bread has been rising for about 3 hours. You can see it really tripled in size, and it's supposed to be kind of spongy and springy. Definitely is. So it is ready to fry. We have about 32 ounces of coconut oil in a pan. You can use any kind of cooking oil you want. This recipe just happened to call for coconut oil. And this is a deep chicken fryer, so you definitely want to use a deep frying pan. The recipe recommends a cast iron frying pan. So we're going to go ahead and get that started. And then let's fry some bread.
Fry bread is art. Sculpture, landscape, portrait, our daily craft. Shared from teacher to student, a cycle of heritage and fortune.
Okay, so we had our oil going here on medium heat for about 5 minutes, because coconut oil is kind of a solid. It took a little while to melt. And we dipped 2 spoons in the oil. And now we're going to get ready to test our oil. So we have to give it a couple of more minutes, maybe. I was talking to a friend today whose family is Cherokee, and they actually make their fry bread recipe completely different from this one. This is going to turn out a little bit more like a hush puppy or kind of a sourdough, or that's the way the recipe's supposed to go. So just like hush puppies, you're going to make little balls and dip it into the oil. I'm going to redip my spoon here. It's really not quite hot enough yet. It's just starting to sizzle. And bread. Here we go. You can see there was a teensy bit, and it is starting to sizzle. Yes, it's definitely starting to sizzle there. All right, so oil or spoon again. I've already got one started here. There, you can definitely hear that sizzling. And use about a golf ball size portion of dough there. Drop it in there. We're gonna let it fry. Let's fry these here. The first full ball we put in there. And you're going to want to just cook them until they look golden brown. So probably about 3 minutes or so in this hot oil, especially if you're using a cast iron pan. They heat up very fast and they really hold the heat too. So it's really starting to cook there. You guys can probably hear that sizzle. And oh my goodness, the coconut oil smells so good. Of course, you can use any kind of frying oil you want. And you can probably see the colors changing a little bit. It's a little less yellow and a little bit more brown. So I'm actually going to turn the heat up a little bit on my skillet. Just so we can really get frying here. Like I mentioned before, there's many different ways to make it. And maybe this way is not going to be your favorite. So you can definitely experiment. There are lots of recipes out there. You can probably find some more cookbooks. I know you can find some recipes on the internet. Or maybe ask a friend. Maybe you know someone whose family makes fry bread. Well, this one looks really good. Nice size, nice color here. It's really starting to get golden brown there. All right. And if you want yours to be more of a flatbread, you actually can go ahead and roll out the dough. Make sure you use plenty of flour because it's a very sticky dough. Oh, there we go. Now you can kind of see that golden brown color on there. Looks pretty good, huh? So we're going to put it onto our plate with a paper towel so it can drain. And then we'll give it a try.
Fry bread is sound. The skillet clangs on the stove. The fire blazes from below. Drop the dough in the skillet. The bubbles sizzle and pop. Fry bread is color. Golden brown, tan or yellow, deep like coffee, sienna or earth, light like snow and cream, warm like rays of sun.
So we have got our fry bread all finished here. It cooled down a little bit. It is actually best served when hot. And as you can see, this piece came out nice and golden brown. I realize the shape is a little funny. It made up a pretty big batch, actually. I got about 20 pieces out of it, and that will just depend on what size of dough balls you put into your frying oil there. And let's see what it's like. It's a nice golden brown color. Go ahead and break it apart here and see what the inside looks like. Yep, just like a little bit like a hush puppy. So it's kind of fluffy. Let's see what it tastes like. That's the important part, right? Even though they do look kind of funny. And you can have yours be flat if you would rather. All right, let's give it a taste. Mmm. Pretty good. It is crunchy on the outside, chewy on the inside, very yummy. And not that hard to make, really, but definitely you do want grown-up supervision. Don't try to do it by yourself if you're a little guy, okay? And we hope that maybe you can make fry bread part of your family tradition. You can find the book Fry Bread at the Dresden Branch Library, and we are also going to have it as an ebook that you can download through Libby or Overdrive. And thank you so much for joining us. Have a great Thanksgiving, everybody. Bye-bye.
Fry bread is flavor. See beans or soup, smell tacos, cheese and vegetables. Delight in honey and jam. Rise to discover what brings us together. Fry bread is everything. Round, flat, large, small, north, south, east, west, brown, yellow, black, white, familiar and foreign, old and new, we come together. Fry bread is us. We are still here, elder and young, friend and neighbor. We strengthen each other to learn, change, and survive. Fry bread is you.